So today I'm going to talk about using social media in hearts and minds work. Now, for me, that's a little bit, I don't know, it puts a little bit of a fine point on it. If you are using media and you are doing activism, surely you are working to change hearts and minds. If you're not working on changing hearts and minds, then you're kind of having a lovely party with the people you like. And that is good and that is great, and maybe that sustains you as an activist. But today, everything that I'm thinking about is geared toward this question of what are you moving people to? Given that I can't assume what kind of level of facility and admiration people might have for various forms of social media, we're going to kind of span from the 101 or the sort of beginner level to kind of more, ooh, what would a sophisticated and complicated campaign look like? Just so you can see kind of the breadth, and maybe it's also an access point for you if you don't know what a hashtag is. That's okay. So, these are our tools over here on the left side. This is not the full list of all the social media opportunities you have in the world. New ones are created every day. Meta tweets. I don't even know, they're coming. But so I just want to kind of name each of these, but you're going to get some felt examples of what that kind of looks like, so you can get a sense of it in case you don't have your own tweet deck. So Facebook. Who in here has a Facebook page? Pretty much everybody. Okay, so Facebook. It's that place where you either have your own page as you yourself, or maybe you have one for your group or your project or your event or your mission or your organization. It's really good for all of those things. You're basically creating online personas of the thing you care about, right? Twitter is a way of communicating very shortened written ideas, but they might be really big, they're really compact. So it's become this really amazing kind of theater for creativity and humor and seeing how much you can pack into one little 140 character space. You can also tweet pictures, so it's kind of like, it has this feeling of like it's coming at you, like it's the thing of the moment, the thing of the moment, the thing of the moment, right? Blogs. Who here knows what a blog is? Know what a blog is? Okay, so blogs can look a lot of different ways, but the basic idea is kind of, on this date and time, I had this idea I wanted to share with you, or this photo or this video, and here's a little nugget of thought for you to sit on. And it's generally a pretty good space for concise ideas, longer than a tweet, less than an essay. Tumblr is a subsection of blog. It's a very photo-dense kind of blog where you're cataloging things by date, and they tend to be pretty pictorial. YouTube is where you can upload videos that you make. They might be of your campaign, they might be of your cute dog, they can be specific for your organization so that you are cataloging your history. And then Flickr is very much focused around creating a photo archive. And it can be accessed by a lot of different folks who can feed in their photos and caption them. And we're going to talk more about kind of the goals and opportunities and best practices of each of these. So here are your aims that you might think of. I feel like the world of social media is exploding and a little bit overwhelming. I mean, there's just so much opportunity. You could spend all of your time putting on multi-channel productions of incredible projects, right? So for me, it's helpful to really piece out, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? To what end? And then what tool or tools is the best thing for accomplishing that? And sometimes just writing down the various categories is helpful for deciding what it is you're trying to do. You might be trying to educate your own. So maybe it's a great way for all of your folks who are part of your thing to come to your Facebook page and read all the current news that has to do with the issue you care about. Or maybe it's about educating your adversary. Maybe you're trying to get some kind of viral video out there that will magically land in the inboxes because it is that tasty that people who are not necessarily in your social network are going to be affected by the social media you create. You can be winning allies. Folks maybe who didn't know they cared so much about this thing that you are so passionate about. It's good for aggregation. like the gun control issue that Cindy talked about, this flash mob. Think of that amazing amount of data they now have. All those opinions, all those angles, all those perspectives and thoughts on gun control. Now they can really make some evidence-based decisions on who cares about this issue and what do they have to say about that. That's really powerful. You can spur people to take action. Perhaps, like an online petition. Some might argue that that in itself is social media. But you can move people to, on this day, show up here and do this thing. Or, hey, everybody, like this photo, and it gets a certain number of likes, and maybe I win this contest. You can spur people to do something. You have an outlet for expression. Sometimes you just need to vent. Sometimes you just need to get it out there, let people know what you're thinking, let people know what you're feeling, because it can connect you to people who are experiencing that same thing. Maybe nobody knew that, wow, people in my office say that to me all the time too. This is a pattern, which means that there's some power behind it, which means it's a system, which means something is upholding this, and maybe we ought to think about that, right? It can be for base building, getting new people in who really want to be a part of supporting and getting behind what it is that you're creating. Sharing the work, finding volunteers. Hey, who wants to, tweet this live event out? Who wants to bring the cups? Who's got a room that we can be in? It's a great way to share over distance. For example, Soulforce. For the large part of our history, we've been just a network of folks all over the country. Only until recently have we kind of pulled into Texas and Minnesota as our main two geographies. So this has been a great way of both finding volunteers to help us kind of lift the heavy load, as well as just connect coworkers. And lastly, I would not be a director of development if I did not say that donations can be a part of this. You might not have any need for dollars, but I bet you need access to a copier, or somebody to make cookies, or somebody with a truck to help you at some point with whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? So think of donations as resources. It's a great way to bring in resources to support the thing you wish to see in the world. Any questions? Okay. We'll just take a look at some examples. All right. The #1 Facebook page in the world with the most likes is Facebook for every phone. Because when people get on their phone and they download the Facebook app, it has an automatic click on do you want to like this page, right? And so many people want to download Facebook, and this is why social media is important, that has become the #1 Facebook page, right? So 225 million likes it has. At this moment in time, there was 3 million people talking about it. Whoa, that's a lot of people, right? Now, just think if people actually cared and were engaged with Facebook for every phone. What if all of a sudden they were like, queer liberation is the best thing ever? Oh my gosh, so many people would get that message. That'd be beautiful. So how do you know if your Facebook page is doing what you want it to do? Is it accomplishing the things I want? I want people to come to me for news resources. I want people to check in with me daily. I want whatever it is that you want, whatever metric you're looking for. This page data thing is super helpful. You can just Google page data and you can get this. And you can be like, oh, we're pretty good. We had a solid number of folks. And all of a sudden, wow, nobody was super interested in us. And what did we start doing here that made people interested in us again? So these kind of analytics, they're pretty easy to come by. And they can help you think about, okay, what was I doing in the world that made people care about my Facebook page on April 7th? Well, what was happening? You can start to kind of test sort of what is the on-the-ground relationship with this sort of in-the-air and internet kind of relationship. Important things to think about. Here's Rihanna. She has another one of the most, liked pages. And, she's a great businesswoman, okay? So it's like, this is her most recent album. This is a really provocative photo. She chose it wisely. She's sharing photos. She's got videos posted on her page. She's got it all segmented out by tours and downloads. She's got a whole crew of people helping her create the best photos and videos, etc. So it can really be a good place to sell your idea, your vision, your mission, right? So Facebook, what is it good for? What's it good for? What do you use it for? Communicate. Who do you communicate with? Family and friends. Okay.
Coordinating family events.
Coordinating family events. It's great for pulling events together, right? You can have this event, and it has all the information, and the map, and the everything, so that you're not fielding phone calls left and right, right? Need a phone like that. We live in the cell phone world, right? So it's great for communicating out. It's broadcasting your message. It's great for marking the history of, say, your organization or your campaign, where you've come from, right? I think it's really great for, how do you want to put this? Making sure that you keep all those sort of passive friends under your wing. You know, there's all those folks who are sort of like, I can't be engaged every day. This isn't my main thing. But I'll like it, and I'll be over here doing my thing. And every now and then, you'll kind of go, doo-doo. And then I'll know to pop up because there's something important happening. And then I'll pay attention, right? So you can build that base. And you can be okay with, like, some people are going to be solidly there. And they're going to be on your Facebook page. They're probably going to be posting on your Facebook page. And then there's going to be people where it's just sort of like this loose tether. And that loose tether is important. It does mean something still today. So, yeah.
I'd just like to insert that Inclusive Justice has a Facebook page. And
Yes.
we would love for you all to visit it.
That's
Yes.
right. Good plug. So, best practices. Your Inclusive Justice Facebook page. Have you updated it recently?
Yes.
Good. What's on it?
This event.
Lots of things that under the wing educate what's going on in our state of Michigan that's
Yeah.
faith-based,
Okay.
you know, so.
So you're kind of casting somewhat of a wide net, keeping people generally educated. That's a good best practice. Have you Facebooked any photos from this conference today?
No, not
For
yet.
all the people who are like just killing themselves that they're not here. Maybe you could do that. People would get the feel of like, oh, like it's going on right now. It has a good sense of like, this is what people are feeling and doing and thinking right now. So keep it fresh. Don't let your Facebook page get stale, you know? If I come to a Facebook page of an organization and the last post is 2 months ago, I'm gonna think, oh gosh, did they die? Like, is the organization gone? You know, and then if they start inviting me to an event, I'm gonna think, oh, it's not probably gonna be all that successful because, like, you know, it's a measure of life these days. Right? It's telling you what's the pulse. Twitter! Okay, so this is Romney, and this is the comedian Rob Delaney, he was like crashing and burning as a comedian, and then he found Twitter, and it was his medium. This is a tweet that he wrote, at Mitt Romney. If you won't release your tax returns, at least tell us what conditioner you use. Hashtag Sheen, hashtag Luster, hashtag body. Okay, I am such a fan of satire as sort of like a political tool. And tweets have just this amazing ability for humor. I think it's worth really like naming that solidly. Like humor in tweets can be brilliant. So how these tweets things work. So at Mitt Romney, that's who you want to talk to. Now, Mitt Romney might be an actual, you know, handle on Twitter. Maybe Mitt Romney has that. Maybe he doesn't. You can make it up as you go along. Who do I want to speak to today? I want to speak to, who am I feeling like talking to? At Dad. I'm getting married in August, and it'd be super great if you thought that, like, my partner and I deserve benefits, you know, that kind of thing. So that's you know what's kind of going on there. But so you can talk to whoever you want, and you can be creative with that because maybe you want to talk at God or talk at the whomever. You're creating your reality in this. It is both serious and it is both funny, and it highlights something serious that people might not notice otherwise. You know, if Rob Delaney had just said, you should really release your tax returns, it's like, well, okay, yeah, probably a lot of people tweeted that. Nobody else tweeted, like, you know, okay, so like your tax returns, whatever, let's talk about your conditioner, okay? So I think there's something important happening here because hashtag Sheen, hashtag luxury, hashtag body. Hashtags can give you a location. For example, everybody who is tweeting from the Creating Change conference back in January for LGBT stuff, it was probably something like hashtag CCC 2013. So that's putting a location, and that's grouping all of the tweets that come from there, right? Okay, so where is Rob Delaney locating Mitt Romney? At Sheen, Luster, and Body. He's like, yeah, I know you do Bain Capital, and you kind of go out there and exploit all these workers and do all these things with these companies, but you know what? Like, all I really care about you today is your conditioner and the state of your hair, which is, I think, is just kind of like absurd and amazing. So, you know, you're creating your own reality, I think is the upshot of Twitter.
Okay, for those of us who don't understand Twitter, how does a person know who it came from? Now I just see it.
How does the person know who it came from? Okay,
yeah,
so
like you can create your own hashtag, but
so you go on and you create your own account. So Soulforce is at Soulforce.org, and then so on our Twitter feed it shows up. There's our little logo, and then it says at Soulforce.org, and then I can just start typing. I don't have to use an at, and I don't have to use a hashtag. Or if I'm talking to somebody in specific, sort of like at the Pope, how about you pay attention to like queers if you don't care about economic justice this time around, you know? Or I can just start typing and I can hashtag something. Like I was live tweeting Cindy earlier, and I wrote down something about the Sneetches, and then I did hashtag Cindy Love Speaks. So. Do you all remember the scenario of this? Mm-hmm. It's one of the presidential debates, and Mitt Romney's talking about PBS. And I'm not actually like being biased in my pulling up these. These are some of the most retweeted and popular ones, right? So I don't think Big Bird actually has his own Twitter account. I don't think that this Twitter account even was in existence until this was said. And then somebody got instantaneously creative and said, what if I were to speak from the mouth of Big Bird? And so went on, created this thing, and then spoke, right? Now, it could have been, let's say it was Haven Heron. So Haven Heron writes, WTF, Mitt Romney, sad face. You know, that's not the same kind of power. Somebody decided to create the reality in which Big Bird is an actual character who speaks and is part of the political dialectic. That's brilliant. That has legs, right? And so here we are over in somebody showing up to vote in the Big Bird costume. So it's become a real. It's like on the ground now, right? In a very physical way, which I think is hilarious, right? And then somebody, you know, pulls this up because Sesame Street, you know, being good at doing justice work, you know, had like clearly an episode about poverty and hunger at one point. You know, and so then that became a part of the larger story of this thing that happened on Twitter, you know? Like, so then it becomes, you know, you've taken all the power away from this politician saying this thing. The story is not about this anymore. The story is about what did social media do, right? That's amazing. That's amazing to me. One thing to note is all of these little buttons here. This is Facebook, that's Pinterest, that's Twitter, that's email. I'm not actually sure what these two are, but that's okay. And these are ways to quickly link. So for example, if I saw this photo and I was like, oh my God, this story is amazing, I want to share it. I would click this Facebook button, and then it could easily show up on my Facebook page, or if I'm logged into Soulforce, it can show up on the Soulforce Facebook page. So as you are creating your social media, make sure you're thinking about this linking thing. How are people sharing this? How does this become iterative? So who in here tweets? Who in here has some kind of Twitter feed? What do you tweet about?
I'm a business person.
Okay.
I am at Schmidt_law.
Okay.
And so I tweet about new cases in the law, and things that have come up. Particularly, one of my things is LGBT marriage. So I will send out tweets when there are developments in that.
Okay. Cool. What do you tweet about?
I don't tweet that much, but either clever things that I think of, or like different like political things, or like if
Yeah.
I watched a good documentary recently.
Yeah.
Or and also I tweet like journalism things that I
Okay. All right. So it's really good for kind of new developments, getting a quick little bite of information out there, letting people know about something cool they might not have heard of. I think Twitter, in its limitations for 140 characters, really pushes people to be very creative about kind of the emotional and intellectual and personality sort of context of your Twitter feed. You know, you have to get creative, or you're going to have a whole lot of boring. You don't have a lot of space to like get to the punchline. You have to get to it, right? So I think that Twitter can be a very valuable tool for a project, an organization, a group, or whatever, to sort of create that persona of what you're doing in the world. You know, it's meant for creating a really precise and evocative kind of voice, whatever it is. Whatever, who are you on Twitter, I think is a great question. And some of the best practices is, you know, spice it up with some photos every now and then. You know, tweet a pic instead of always writing. Don't put URLs in it because they're complicated and the links never quite work and it gets awkward. You know, use the hashtags and the @s, you know, sparingly and with some precision. Remember that like sky's the limit. What if, you know, what if I wanted to have 2 Twitter feeds because I wanted to create a dialogue between 2 people? Like, what if I love the idea of, say, you know, I think I would love to see maybe like Noam Chomsky and Governor who?
Grover Norquist.
Grover Norquist talking. Okay, so I'm just going to create it for them. And I'm going to play out this conversation. And I'm going to make the things and the truths that need to be said, all right? You know, you can, it's satisfying in that way. You can create whatever reality is that you need. And then maybe somebody picks that up and it becomes a media story on Facebook, and then it becomes a media story on the blog, right? So here we are at blogs. This is one of my favorite blogs, Racialicious. It is a collection of a lot of different authors who comment on and provide some really insightful analysis around racial justice in this country, especially how it connects to issues of feminism and economics and documented status, etc. Brilliant work. You know, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. I'm sure this is a pretty canned kind of setup, you know, like they click the I want option 3, you know, it's very simple, white background, they pick one little logo, the gummy bear that, you know, works for them. And great content. I go there all the time, you know, when my brain's sort of like I need a break, I just need something new to feed it, I go there. Here's the Soulforce blog, which is, you know, slightly different. It's located on our website, kind of within it. And I think that organizationally, having a blog or, you know, say your group or your project, it's great for controlling message and doing some really thoughtful analysis of what it is that you are doing. And it's also a really great way to showcase your community. So, you know, I was at a diversity conference last week for a set of very conservative Christian schools. And I was there with some folks, a small delegation of people to go there and kind of bring queerness and race and sexuality into that conversation. And, you know, so I'm not going to be the one to write that blog post. I took some photos that'll be a part of the blog post, but somebody else was there experiencing it, not as a Soulforce, you know, longtime staffer, to kind of give a new perspective on it. You know, just have some fresh voices in there. Always a really smart idea. Does anybody else in here have a blog they run? Yeah, what do you use?
I have 2. I'm the director of the Indigenous Women's-led organization to protect the waters of the Great Lakes called Keepers of the Water. I maintain that website and blog. I also maintain my own website, which I'm a published author, poet, writer as well. Focus on Native identity, Native women's issues, Anishinaabe territory, which is what you know as the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
So I've read about a lot of different things.
That's great. And are you always writing all the content, or do you pull in content from others?
I pull in content from others.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the water issues, we can't constantly, you know, there's so much for the Great Lakes and try to get different stuff, a variety of things.
Yeah.
you know.
I would imagine a lot of people look to you to kind of be their curator of all of that information. Because you are so deeply tied to the issues, like you know what is kind of pinging as important and necessary, and so you're able to educate a lot of folks that way. So that's what a blog is really great for. Yeah.
I think it's important to remind everybody that you can start a blog for nothing.
Yes.
You don't need any money to have your own blog.
All of these are free so far. Some of them require a little more technology, like YouTube, but all of them are free so far. I think that, yeah.
Blogger is $10 to have your own domain name a year, and WordPress is $18.
Yeah.
So it's portable. It's not.
I think
you can do it.
Here's something I love about blogs is they're really great for capturing history. And if we think about it, we live in a country where the victors have wanted to always tell the history, you know? And so what kind of resistance act is it? What kind of power do we have when we say, we're going to catalog our own history? We are going to write it from our perspective. It's our photos, it's our voices, it's our analysis of the situation. Kind of how to shift that power and to see the value in archiving our own history so that we are writing it and it is us who are at the center. Yeah.
She said something about $10 for a domain name. If it's free, why would we have to get the domain name?
You don't have to get your own domain name. It's, you know, for example, let's go back. So this could be www.blogspot.racialicious.com, and they can have that for free. If they want www.racialicious.com, because they don't want that blogspot in the name of it, then you have to pay a little bit. But that price is going down and down over time, which is great. So Tumblr. Tumblr is a lot like a blog in that you kind of have, on this date, I have a title of something I want to say, and then there's all of the information, right? So Tumblr tends to be more photo focused. It's like a hybrid somewhere between Twitter and a blog. You know, it's shorter, it's more concise. You put it out there, other folks can reblog it. It's very much passing it around. You're building a network of folks who pay attention to the things that you put out there in the world. So I was kind of just searching around, what are some of the most popular Tumblrs of the last several years? And this was an interesting one, Perez Hamilton. And it's all about history. And it's very like tweaking the ear of the way, again, like how history gets told and who's in charge of telling that history. It takes old paintings from white masters of painting and just kind of is like, well, I'm just going to write on them. And like, what kind of active resistance is that? I love that, you know? Like, I have something to say, and I'm going to just like write on top of this thing that's supposed to be so venerated, you know? And I'm going to talk about the reality of like, what is burning in this picture, right? And like, what do fires mean in our history? So here's this painting, and it says, oh, come on. And then under here, there's like a teeny segment on like the real history of what happened in this painting, which I think is a really powerful way of kind of like reclaiming the ways of telling history and reclaiming the artifacts of life to tell more truth, to tell the real stories. I love that. And I'm a fan of any blog that can, in a sexy and tasty way, put more truths about history and the histories of violence in this country, you know, out there. I would say bravo. Here's actually a text-based Tumblr, which I can actually, you know, after 8 million posts, you might not even think of this as text-based. It becomes somewhat of a graphic because it has been iterated so many times. It's like, it's more of an idea than the written words themselves. This is the #1 most passed on Tumblr blog post. Mitt Romney sucks. You know, and people can tweak this and they can add little things to it, but it had over 7 million at last count last year, kind of, you know, reiterations, right? And people added some things like reblog if you love Tumblr, Barack Obama sucks, pass it on, like, whoa, it's getting like really mixed messages, and that's interesting in itself. And I think, you know, after you sit back and look, okay, 8 million posts, it's not even really about the message anymore, is it? It's about seeing, can I be the post that is the most reposted post on Tumblr, okay? And then you start thinking, oh, like, what is that lesson that we learn from that in social media? That sometimes it's not about the message itself. It's not about those precious and carefully chosen words, but it's about doing the thing that is so noticeable that you're able to take that and leverage that into something else. Because now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, who started this thing? And what were they thinking when they started this? And like, I want to know that person. So it's like, not even about the post anymore. It's kind of about the bigger story around it. And so sometimes, you know, social media kind of goes from being the message to sort of the social impact of the medium itself, which I think is really interesting. So who here has a Tumblr? You have a Tumblr? I don't have a Tumblr. I can't manage that many things in my life. But, you know, so goals and opportunities, like, it's great for sharing photos. It's great for connecting with people who might be allies or part of your base. It's international, so you might be creating connections with folks. You know, I've heard plenty of stories from people who are sort of like, yeah, this person in Boston started following my Tumblr, and then, you know, a couple of years later I happened to be traveling through, and then I had this amazing meeting, and we had coffee, and then we planned this project, you know. So it's a great way to build a social network. It's a great way to archive your history. And it's for getting short, you know, ideas and really like absorbable kind of content through photo or video out there. I think that's what Tumblr is especially good at. Here's YouTube. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think also to like add on with Tumblr, a lot of like outcasts, like they find their haven and find their community on Tumblr, especially if you look at films. Started like that community, they've started on Tumblr, and a lot of like social activists, like communities start because of Tumblr.
You make a beautiful point that did not once pop into my head in the whole preparation of this, but I mean the power, it's, people talk about, you know, sort of the anonymity of the web and what that has provided to people who are in, you know, sort of subordinate communities. But it's particularly the social media that has provided such opportunities for folks to find their allies and find their, you know, cohort in this world, right? And that is so powerful and so true. Thank you for saying that. YouTube. So YouTube, much the same of any of these. You go in, you log on or log in, create yourself an account. So Soulforce has an account here, and this is our channel of everything that we upload, everything we've uploaded. So we have kind of, I think it's Cindy talking somewhat recently somewhere. We have introductions of all of our board members, so people kind of get a sense of who we are. We have lots and lots of past campaign videos. And you know, this is a way for you to really introduce who you are, where you can really put some political analysis out there. You can talk about what you do. You have a little bit more space to kind of develop an idea fully. Also, you know, you can take very large things and compact them into something that is digestible and transferable. So for example, Soulforce, we want to talk about the patriarchy, right? And patriarchy is pretty darn big. That's huge. But what if we can break that down into some 2 and 3 minute kind of, here, I want to talk to you about like patriarchy and how that, you know, shows up in sort of youth work. Or I want to talk about patriarchy and what that means for women of color. You know, like all of these things are really valuable ideas. And so if somebody can watch that, they can kind of really wrap their heads around it, and they can also send it on to somebody else. So I think that is what YouTube is for, is kind of creating that culture of speaking and thinking and language and analysis that you might have as an activist, as an organization. So anybody here do YouTube a lot? You do. You make a lot. What do you make a lot of YouTube around?
I have a federal access show called Serenity, and we usually upload the whoever it is that I'm interviewing.
That's great. Okay, so like a lot of people get to see it kind of different kind of audiences
in their neighborhoods. Yes,
exactly. That's great. So it's a way for you to go global, right? So recently, I was in Stockholm at a conference. It's called the International Lesbian and Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Intersex Association, and I was a part of this pre-conference for people doing the faith work, you know, in this movement. And it was really interesting. I always kind of get super humbled and learn a lot when I'm in the international context because, you know, Soulforce has some booklets, we have written things, we have a little bit of video. And then you start talking to folks where they're like, well, I don't have a computer, but I do have a phone. So like downloading things doesn't work, but videos, absolutely. And so it's really important if you're thinking globally or if you want your resource to be widely accessible, we have to be thinking in terms of all of these different channels, because what works in some contexts does not work in another. Some people can't watch that television channel, but they can definitely go watch it on YouTube, right?
Correct.
So I think there's an important issue of access to always think about in this social media work. Flickr. This is Soulforce's Flickr page. And this is important, again, in that kind of sense of archiving. You know, we have, this is actually Mason that you can see perform later tonight. You know, we've had it separated out, so quality red stops in San Francisco, Oregon, Laramie, Salt Lake City. It's a great way to organize, caption. It's a great way to have people feel a part of it. You know, I saw this action, and I got this cool photo, and I want to put it in the big, you know, library in the sky of Soulforce. That's important because now you have, you know, a catalog of all of the things that you have accomplished, and you have a really strong visual sense of what's going on. And folks can access this both to upload and to just kind of get a sense of who you are and what you've accomplished. You know, like, you know, they can see, okay, who's involved? Like, what kind of folks are showing up? You know, do I want to show up there? They can assess that. And then also, if I'm thinking organizationally, okay, now I have all these really amazing photos. What can I do with these? I can create the coolest scrapbook ever. I can create an amazing slideshow. I can create a 10-year history book of Soulforce. I can write the best direct mail letter we've ever had because I have the most poignant photo you have ever seen, and it will rip your heart out, right? So many cool things you can do with this. So it's a really amazing resource to make sure that you are managing and taking care of. So I would say goals and opportunities, named most of those, you know, sort of, think of all of the different kinds of communication you can do from then on with all of those beautiful photos. It's an incredible opportunity for people to kind of participate online in some kind of campaign. Say, hey, you know, photograph you and your family, or hey, you know, photograph a place of resistance in your city, you know, whatever that means to you, and take a photograph of it and send it to us and upload it on our Flickr. And then you start creating a really powerful online campaign that's photo-based, and that's beautiful, right? Make sure you get dates, make sure you organize them, make sure you kind of pull out the not so powerful ones, like, you know, you only need so many photos of like the grass on the ground, right? Make sure you get captions so that did somebody photograph grass? You know, make sure you get captions so that, you know, let's say I'm not around someday, and you know, other folks are accessing those photos to try to piece together some kind of education around what happened when. You know, without those captions, you know, you've got a lot of great visuals, but you're missing some of the history. So, all these tools, all these things you might do with them, all these amazing opportunities. How does this actually play out as part of a campaign, right? Like, put it in action. So I'm thinking in terms of three fields. You've got where the situation where social media is working in tandem with some kind of on-the-ground campaign. You got cool things happening over here, and you're kind of stoking the fires over here with the social media. And they're kind of talking to each other and making each other stronger and working together. That's beautiful, right? Cindy gave some great examples of that this morning. Then you've got your situations in which some kind of on-the-ground campaign or event is geared towards getting media. So your metric is media. You're like, I want CNN. What do I have to do to get CNN? Maybe that's, you know, the way that you want to think, and that's something you can do. So you just create something that's so awesome, so undeniably delicious that it gets on CNN. And lastly, an entirely media-based campaign where the whole existence is in media, and it's about moving the sort of social capital of media around. Maybe towards probably getting some kind of on-the-ground action to happen at some point, but you know, you can kind of have these sort of media-encapsulated campaigns. I want to look at a couple examples. South to South. This is a coalition of some really just like ACEs organizations working in the southern region of the United States. They had a program called The People's First 100 Days, where it was like, yeah, we're talking about policy, and we're talking about the reality of like Southern lives on the ground, where like poverty and lack of access to education and patriarchy and sexism and racism are real. And so they brought together, many organizations all doing really great work in the South. And they've got all this online stuff cool happening. You can like download the MLK Day Action Packet, all these things that you can do where you live, facilitated by online dispersal of information. You've got sign on to the People's First 100 Days. You can join online, so you get the information and the petitions, etc. You can gather a street team to record a video interview. Sort of like all these directions on how you can be a part of a very large networked campaign through social media on the ground, connected to folks. It's beautiful. They've also got 12 action sites across the South, so real things happening in Charleston, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Dothan, Alabama, all beautiful. Love it. Then you've got scoring media. This is 2009, just before the G8 summit in Italy, where they're going to talk about global warming. So some Greenpeace activists put on their harnesses and rappel down the side of Mount Rushmore and drop this. And it says, America honors leaders, not politicians, stop global warming. This is a super complicated one for me. I'll put that right out there. Like, I don't think that this sculpture should be on this land, on these rocks. Like the difference between leader and politician and who in the presidency, super complicated, don't need to debate it. But boy, did they get some media. Oh my goodness, did they get some media. So, as an example of doing something on the ground to get noticed, because you want the buzz in that sort of media biosphere, they accomplished it. Media as campaign unto itself. This is the Everyday Sexism Project, which probably started as, I'm so tired of hearing the same things over and over again, these cliches are oppressing me. People from all over tweet in, and then there's all of these tweets that are compiled on this blog. So Suzanne, via Twitter, wrote in, watching rugby today, the worst insult another fan could think of to yell at a player was, don't be such a woman. Exhausting and, you can unpack it for days, but so there's all sorts of people writing in to share their experiences, and I think there's power in looking at those patterns and seeing that this happens over and over again because it's part of a system. This is a mechanism of oppression, right? And then what happened? They got a film opportunity, right? So it's started as media, and now they're getting more media. I don't even know if they thought that was the end point, but that's what's happening. So it's beautiful, right? Media unto itself, becoming bigger than itself. Here's the feminist Hulk. Boom, this is one of my favorite Twitter feeds. So, feminist Hulk. It is actually not the Hulk, and it's not anybody associated with the franchise of the Hulk. It's somebody who decided, I want a really, powerful, growly figure, and I want it to be feminist. And wouldn't that be awesome to have that kind of power and force behind feminism? I think that's a great thing. So here's a couple of my favorites. Columbus Day equals Rape and Genocide Day. Nothing to celebrate. Let's use it as a call to gather, remember, and join and smash. Second one. Hulk no fear patriarchy hegemony. Hulk smash hegemony and eat for breakfast. Sprinkle on granola. Always wash carefully first. It's the humor thing. It's just theater, creating the world in which you want to say the things you want to say. And has so many followers. At this point, it was, I can't remember, 66,000 followers. That's a decent amount of people. And there's probably some people who maybe haven't thought a whole lot about the patriarchy, or don't use the word patriarchy, or it might be those folks who say, I believe in equality, but I'm not a feminist, that kind of thing. Maybe reading this galvanizes some people to be actually this is a worldwide thing we're dealing with here, right? Powerful. Love it. All right, so case study in the room. Somebody in here has some kind of project that they want to accomplish. What are you working on? What are you working on? Let's dream it up.
Holland Area Pride.
What is it? Holland Area Pride. Okay, so has Holland Area Pride happened before?
Minimally.
Okay. And what have been your sort of successes or challenges in doing this?
Well, existing in a conservative community and having the city council reject an ordinance giving equal rights in housing and employment. Okay, so we're expanding the event, getting better sponsorship, creating more space in a public setting.
Yeah. Is Holland a very big town?
30,000.
30,000? Pretty decent. Okay. So what do you want your message to be for Holland Pride? What would it feel like to you?
Expanding the discussion and providing a safe space for that expanded discussion and feel. And it's in most Pride events, you know, being able to come out and enjoy yourself.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's see. So the Pride kind of tends to, if we're going to go with the kind of general narrative that we've seen thus far, you've kind of got this sort of, there's some sort of like movement thing that happens. Like there's some kind of beginning point, and maybe it passes some important points, and then it has some sort of end point. Like there's the transitory piece of Pride, and then there's this like celebration, like party space, discussion space, whatever kind of space form. Okay. And what are have you had any specific challenges before in organizing this?
Well, certainly getting the public space approved was a challenge, and then that's been approved.
Okay.
Certainly getting publicity out there, and you know, in a community that religiously would like to squash us.
Okay. Okay. All right. So here, I'm gonna toss this idea. Let's see if we can like get a baseline of some kind of project, like what it would look like, and then we can kind of be like, ooh, what sort of social media would make that really just fabulous.
Yes.
So I had this idea. Okay, so I live in Minneapolis, and you know, recently Minnesota had our marriage debate. You know, personally speaking, marriage as like the political movement tool is super complicated for me. You know, it's complicated for me. It's a race issue. It's a class issue. It's a, you know, trans youth. What are we doing there? Like, you know, kind of thing. Super complicated, but it's out there and it is a thing. And the people who are against it for really intensely unhelpful reasons that cause a lot of, you know, economic oppression of LGBT people. So all the people who were, you know, sort of against this thing put up signs in their lawns. Of course, you know, there's all the like yay queer people signs as well. But I was like, wow, all these people just sort of like put a flag out that they were like anti. And I was like, wow, wouldn't I love to serenade them? I would really love to sing some like, you know, rock songs of rebellion, like as beautiful chorus hymns, you know, like, we're not gonna take it, or something like that, you know? Wouldn't it be amazing to have like this train of queers and allies go and serenade these homes that have these signs out there? You know, and they would expect us to protest and be angry and but instead we're like, we're gonna sing to you. And we're gonna sing to you like the message that like affirms us and the message that like makes us feel badass in this world and claim this space, right? Because that's what Pride is about. It's about claiming this space for liberation, okay? So then I would say, okay, so like, who are these, like, what are the kind of like lampposts of things that stand in the way of there being a really awesome Pride? Like maybe there's some churches, or maybe there's some leaders and some politicians, or maybe it's just the government in general. What would be the really amazing parade route of serenading these folks that, you know, and think about the songs that you might sing. Think about all of the justice issues that impact the LGBTQ community. You know, because you talked about housing and you talked about employment. Like, these are real things. Like, how are we going to bring all of that in and sing some real defiant, resistant beauty? Like, what if that was your parade? you know? And like, what if you're like, I don't need a permit. I don't need a permit to sing. Everybody goes caroling, you know? So like, change your relationship to like permits and government sanctions, saying like, yes, you may, you know? Like, you know, just question like your power relationship with that, right? And then, okay, so let's just say that there's going to be some really cool circuitous route to go sing powerful songs of resistance to people who represent and enact fundamentalism in your community. Let's just say, for sake of conversation, that's what's going to happen. How does Facebook support this?
Event? The event is huge.
The event is huge. Okay. So we need a Facebook page to create an event, right? And then that can be the place where we start putting out the words of the songs we're going to sing, or take suggestions, even better, get some buy-in. People saying, oh, we need this song, oh, we need this song, oh, we need this song, right? What do you think?
Well, I would either, I'm going to where you, okay, so I would like start with YouTube, do like, in case there's probably like a practice session for people that want to go, and like you film that, like make it look super cool. Then you put it on your Facebook page, and it's like, oh, me in Ann Arbor, I just saw that. That's really cool. I'm gonna share it to my friends, and like my friends in California are now seeing it, and now it's a big news story about how all of these people are in Holland. They've had all this trouble making this, and they're gonna go sing rock songs in a caroling way.
And you can use the location tags. So let's say you have to go to City Hall to get your ordinance, or get your permit. You can have the person who go on their Facebook page and say, going for Holland Pride at City Hall. So it'll show up that they're right there doing that thing, and it's immediate.
Twitter now can be a place to also share that same kind of message. That's good. I like that. I like the YouTube capturing the videos. What if you encourage choirs around the country to create their own songs of resistance and encouragement as people step up in Holland to start getting like a little bit edgy, not that you haven't been. Okay, I'm starting to see some like real beautiful things happening. How does Tumblr fit into it? What can Tumblr do for you? Don't know. Well, people should.
I got one. Posting pictures of community action and like, oh, look at what we're doing in Holland. We have some support in Grand Rapids. We have some support in Traverse City, Tennessee, in the UP. Wow, people support us from way up there. You know, like you can get that going to show that there's statewide support, because there actually is for the issue in Holland. So it's like,
so people all over leverage those relationships.
Yeah,
make people
collaboration.
Feel like we might be a crowd of 5 singing Twisted Sister on the street, but we've got everybody standing there with us, our crowd of believers.
ACLU is really good about that. They'll put out a call for like, stand here with this picture and take a picture of you standing with a picture, and then they get them to send it to their Tumblr feed or something like that. So you could do something like that. You could create a poster that was like Holland Pride and invite people to take a picture with that poster.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then maybe like, what can you use social media to maybe collect something, whether it's stories or photos, that like, you have all these stopping points on your route, can you leave them something? So now like whatever you've collected online becomes a gift, an offering, a showing of love and generosity. You can't say no to that, right? So that could be gathered using Facebook, that could be gathered using the blog for an organization. Inclusive Justice would, I'm sure, help you out with their website and all that good stuff, so that would be really helpful. All right. Does that feel good? Does that feel like you see where all of these tools are coming together? Now, I expect to see it, but you don't have to. But I expect to see it.
Oh, yeah. we have some good media people working on it. So,
Does anybody have a time check for me?
4:45.
4:45, and I'm done at 5. Great. Okay. So, so here's my general best practices for utilizing the media and the beautiful world we are creating.
I forgot, I missed my point. June 29th, you can all be there.
That's a market.
Post it on Facebook.
All right, so
you'll see that on Facebook, but you have an advance notice. June 29th.
Is Holland ready? for all of us?
As most of you know, there is a Holland is Ready,
Holland is ready.
and we're pushing it. So Holland,
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Or did I tweet it? It's a live tweet.
All right, so here's my general best practices, some kind of plumb lines I like to return to. You know, social media doesn't happen in a vacuum, and that's obvious, but really strong social media is based in some kind of reality and is going somewhere. So when I think of it organizationally, I'm thinking, how is this involved with my marketing and my programs? How are all of these things strengthening each other, feeding each other, giving each other a better broadcast, a stronger signal, right? Have media protocol and crisis plans. Now, media protocol is sort of, you know, both who's doing what. In my organization, we've got one person who just loves Facebook. Bless her, do that Facebook. We've got another person who loves to do Twitter, and she's amazing at it, and I'm all for that. And then, you know, we've got somebody who's really into the blog. So it's also, you know, sort of dividing up those responsibilities so that you're not overwhelmed by the world of possibility. But it's also thinking about, okay, who are we on this social media? You are creating your internet persona, right? So are you snarky? Are you funny? Do you cuss? Do you comment on, you know, religion, or do you completely stay away from it? Do you have a political stance? You know, do you talk about Mitt Romney, or was that totally wrong, you know? So, you know, make these kinds of decisions so that, you know, you feel good about what is being put out in the world, and you kind of, you know, stay on course and stay on message. The second part of that is a crisis plan, sort of, you know, what do you do if some huge piece of media happens? Who's going to be a first responder to that? What do you do if something goes wrong internally in your organization? You know, what if the Twitter feed crashes, or what if our Facebook page gets blocked? You know, these kinds of things. How are you going to deal with them? Establish a social media volunteer pool. This is if you have some kind of big event, campaign, or you're an entire organization trying to steer something. Share that responsibility around, because nobody can be anywhere at the same time. Maybe somebody's live tweeting, and then somebody's making sure I'm thinking to get photos, so they can focus their brain on that. Remember that this is two-way communication, that it is not about just, this is my message and it's out into the world and listen to me, because it's about getting relationships built and hearing back from people and answering questions and taking their feedback and providing places for them to speak to. All these things are super important. So to end with, social media is this somewhat neutral but very biased kind of space. It's guided by your social network. It's who you know and who they know and who they know. So it's not like you're just, you know, speaking to a representative sample group of folks. You've got to think about this as a tool that motivates and inspires people to fill in that blank. You're going somewhere with this. You want them to take some kind of action step. You are building towards something. These tools are great, but I think they shine at their best when they are moving towards a goal and working in tandem with on-the-ground work that is about accomplishing specific tasks. Any questions from folks? Any more things you want to work through, talk about?
What did you say about involve social media? With the very first one, what were your, all of your suggestions?
So involving social media with marketing and programming plans. So, for example, I'll give an example of Soulforce. We did, the Repent campaign is this long ongoing campaign, which calls on faith leaders to repent of bigotry. And you know, what I did at the end of last year, I'm thinking, okay, end of year giving is important. A lot of organizations, you know, make a large amount of their resources during that time. But I really want people to feel like they're giving to something that they're involved with. They have a stake in it, they have a say in it, that it is responsive to who they are and what they want. So, this is what I did. I created an online vote. You could select 12 of your most favorite fundamentalists that you would love to see Soulforce speak to. And it was fundamentalism of a lot of varieties. Was it, you know, on women's issues? Is it on race? Is it on queer issues, a lot of different folks, because I think that fundamentalism has these sort of common roots that sprout up in many ways. So it was like, take a vote, and then it was, you know, send in your story online, and then I would gather all of those stories, and then I shared some of those stories on Facebook and on our blog and in emails, so that people were like, wow, I'm part of this really amazing Soulforce community. I'm super excited, and I want to send in my story. I want to send in my donation. So I collected all of these stories to send to the people they voted on, so that those folks would have what people felt was so necessary for them to hear, right? And then, you know, so then my messaging around my end of year giving was like the power of the personal stories, and Soulforce's willingness to bring those stories to the people least wanting to hear them. So that was Facebook, that was Twitter, that was our blog, that was on our website, that was an online poll, all sorts of good things, all into the mix, where people were taking action, being educated about the fundamentalist leaders who have power in this country, being a part of Soulforce in a meaningful way, and feeling like they know exactly what they're giving to, which is the best kind of giving.
Thank you.
Yeah.